Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17th Shard series where we reread the Cosmere and are giant nerds about it. Today, we will be talking about Bands of Mourning and the magical interactions. Joining me is Mish.
Hello, also known as firstRainbowRose.
Also joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm your writer.
And also Rosemary.
I'm Kaymyth.
And I am Jessie, or Lady Lameness. This episode will have spoilers for all of Era 1, Era 2, up to and including Bands of Mourning, and Secret History. Ian, would you like to do the honors and give us some magical explanation?
Yes. So there's two really cool magic things that came out of this book. The first are Unkeyed and Unsealed metalminds, and the other is metal. Basically, Unkeyed and Unsealed metalminds are an application of identity and investiture, which get explicitly name dropped in the book, and were the final thing in the previews leading up to release, which did drive the fandom insane. Because it's like, what do you know about investiture and identity? And then it just said, we had to wait until the book came out before we
You know, Brandon was cackling to himself when he did that to us.
Like, what do you know about these things? Nothing, because you won't tell us yet.
Investiture in the Cosmere is the magic, and identity is the thing that makes you you, and is why one Fruchemist can't tap another Fruchemist's metalminds, because they are attuned to the original Fruchemist's identity. It's like a lock and a key. But the set and the Southerners have figured out a way to remove identity from feruchemical charges. As long as you have the ability, you can tap this metalmind. So it's like a metalmind any gold-faring can tap, which is an unkeyed metal. And then in the form of the medallions, we get unsealed metalminds, which are metalminds that anybody can tap, whether or not you had the relevant feruchemical ability to begin with or not. That we still don't know how they work, because that's a really big thing. Involves feruchemical nitrosyl and something called the Excisors, which is a very ominous name. I'm just going to throw that out there. Anything excising, ominous.
Particularly when you consider who is involved with the Southern Scadrians as well.
The other thing we learned about is metal tech, which mostly in terms of the primer cube or Allomantic grenade, as it's referenced in text, but also the airships that can fly, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be airships. Metal is Harmony's god metal. I am not going to call it Harmonium because it's a terrible name for what it is.
I mean, Sazedium doesn't sound much better.
Sazedium sounds amazing. You take that back.
So much better, because Harmonium, musical instrument. Yes, the god metal trumpet. God metal pianoforte. Like, no.
Harmonium was an actual instrument.
It is.
Yeah, but it's not a trumpet. Let me look it up real quick.
I know, I'm hyperbolizing right now.
No. Yeah, it's a type of pump organ, which, I don't know, can you not picture Sazed on this pump organ just playing away?
Okay, I'm now picturing Sazed playing Phantom of the Opera on a magically charged...
Oh, no. Toccata in D minor.
Oh! I was just thinking random character. Like blues jazz, except he's got on like the black cool sunglasses and it's just kind of like flying through the sky like this.
As I said, Harmonium, terrible name for a god metal.
If by terrible you mean awesome.
Side note, I'm now picturing, could you make an instrument, like one-man band being a pusher, like a brass band?
No.
Not brass, but because brass, obviously. Musical instruments and allomancy. It's a very fascinating concept now to me.
Well, I know that a Gasper fairing would be able to play without ever having to take a breath in a phrase.
But you still need air moving.
That's an interesting question that nobody cares about.
Yeah, like you 100% still need air moving through the brass instrument to make it work.
Yeah, but does it continue to provide that, or is it just the oxygen in your blood?
These are the questions we need to know.
Some people actually master circular breathing, which is another thing entirely. But
Random, you guys started talking about musical instruments, and now I'm picturing Allomantics playing magically charged instruments.
We don't know what good they would do, but we're imagining it.
The effect of et metal is that it can replicate the effect of allomancy and feruchemy, which is very cool, which means you can get machines doing allomancy and feruchemy.
So if it can replicate both allomancy and feruchemy, can it also replicate hemalurgy without actually stabbing someone? Is that how the excisors work?
That is my leading theory at this time, yes. Which, if you go back in time to I believe it's our Medallions episode, we do have an episode where we talk about Southern Scadrians and their magic. And that was the theory I proposed, that it's like the excisors are et metal powered hemalurgy. Which,
that just sounds bad news bears.
I mean, it sounds better than regular hemalurgy to me.
You don't have to do the stabby. And, if you've got unsealed gold mines hanging around, they can immediately heal themselves and put themselves back together, and it's all good.
Oh, also the Bands of Mourning. They're basically just a very advanced form of unsealed metal mines. Those are a thing that happen in the book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
Here, let's make it a spear, Wayne. Woo, I want the shiny. Okay, does anybody else feel like Wayne's obsessive need for the tip of the spear has to be guided by something more than just Wayne-ness?
No.
I don't know. It was shiny, and they assumed it was aluminum and valuable. Therefore, it was irresistible to Wayne. I mean, at least it's one of those things that, yes, it is a remarkable coincidence, but it also fits his character to do the thing. So it's one of those things where you can go, yeah, I can accept this coincidence.
But I think also that the whole point of it hiding in plain sight is that people wouldn't think to look at it or go for it. So if there is something magical pulling Wayne to it, then it's not really doing a very good job at hiding the way that it was intended to be hidden.
That's fair.
And if it's meant to look into your soul and decide who is worthy, it's not very good at that either.
It's very bad at that.
I don't know. Wayne seems like a pretty good look into your soul. Go Philosopher's Stone levels of stuff where if you want it, you're not going to get it, but where Wayne just wants it to be a shiny thing.
I know I'm very interested in all of the magic, but the applications of identity that we learned in this book, it's stuff that we theorized for a while. It's like, if you can blank out your identity, can you share metal mind reserves? So the fact that we actually got to see it is like, oh, nice. Here's this thing that we theorized was possible. It actually is. And so it's like it was very rewarding as a reader to get that.
Those things are gonna be how we get to FTL travel, and that's gonna be exciting because we're slowly getting more of the pieces together.
I believe at Jordan Con last year, Brandon was talking about the Allomantic grenades. Even though that's not what their in-world original purpose was, it's his method for certain Allomantic abilities to be more advantageous in combat. Main point being Merassi's ability, which is to slow down her time relative to everyone around her. Not super useful in a fight unless you're charging it and trapping somebody else in a bubble.
Which doesn't she do?
She does. Yeah.
And we also saw it used by a leecher to very strong effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another one where it's not quite as helpful when it's just you.
So it does add that extra layer of okay, there are all of these variables in an Allomantic fight. We're just going to add another one and make them even more awesome.
No, I'm excited to see where these things go because they are the balancing act of seeing everybody potentially being able to do anything. And basically it's going to negate allomancy by way of being an advantage because take the concept, advance it by another 100, 150 years, you're going to make it pretty common knowledge. So at that point, it's going to be a case of making sure that you can swap out what you need. Oh, well, you're fighting with this, so I need to swap out to this. Oh, well, now you've swapped out to counteract my swap out, so I need to swap out again. And it's going to become a case of making sure that you have the arsenal on hand.
And I'm sure there are going to be a load of other applications, because this is a technology that was developed by a society that doesn't have a lot of allomancers or ferrochemists. Mm-hmm. And now it's been introduced to a society that has a bunch of them, and they're going to find new ways to use it, like the grenade ability. So I mean, it's something that it never occurred to the Southerners to do it that way, because they don't have enough allomancers who can just go, boom, here, casually toss that in and cause problems.
It is like gunpowder was used as fireworks for however long, and then we're like, oh wait, we can like shoot metal projectiles with this and murder people.
Yep. What you just described was Pokemon. Allomancy is becoming Pokemon. we will all have to get the strategy guide so that we can min-max our Allomantic fight.
Dude, I now kind of want Allomantic Pokemon. Like, you have an adventure game where you have to go around and collect your different, combine it with Terraria. You have to go mine your different metals, and then you can use your metals to fight fights that upgrade your weapons, that allow you to mine other metals, that allow you to fight better. This would be a fantastic game.
Coin shot, I choose you.
Your starter metals are like pusher and puller. And
see, no, what I can't get out of my head now is Allomancer Magical Girl.
Yes!
Oh my gosh, Magical Girl transformation.
My heart is so happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already doing a magical girl in a D&D campaign. She's a warlock. It's great.
I mean, that is the natural expression of the magical girl in the D&D multiverse. It's the only thing. I mean, maybe paladin, but come on, warlock.
My little Sailor Moon obsessed heart is a Twitter with the concept of Allomantic Sailor Scouts. I want this fan art now.
So in the intro, when Jess said that we're going to be giant nerds about it, we're really living up to that in this episode.
If you want like hardcore like magic theory, we have Shardcast episodes about that. Like,
yeah, no,
they'll
that's
probably
not
be linked somewhere. This is just us having fun talking about books.
That's the purpose of this series. It truly is this type of conversation, at least to my mind. I'm excited to see what happens with them.
Like, a lot of the medallion stuff is just so far over my head in terms of things that I am interested in that I just take it at face value. I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to do this thing. I don't know how it works, but that's okay. I'll just go along with it. So I don't have many thoughts on it overall.
Yep, my thoughts are, cool. I take the thing, I slap it on my arm, it does a thing.
And then there's me and Ian who are like, we must know how it works.
Oh, but we must continue the very important discussion that I believe was also brought up in the Medallions episode about whether or not there is a hole in the center of the medallion or not.
I remember this being a conversation. Oh, yes, because it's referenced as 2 rings of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ring of metal and a disc of metal.
Why does it
matter?
That
implies there's a hole. Because we want to know what they look like.
Because we're the 17th shard, that's why.
Those of us who cosplay have to get it right.
Copper mind editors.
There has to be a hole. How else are they going to, like, attach it? Like, he talks about swapping it out.
I know, right? That's another thing, because you just, like, have the little bits of leather tied in either side of the hole. Boom, there you go.
Exactly.
I was under the impression that they were bits of cloth and they were tied to each medallion. That it's not that you're taking the actual medallion out of the cloth, you're just switching them out completely.
Yeah. But even still, you know, in order for it to touch your skin, it has to. Because if you're trying to hold it in place with a cloth around it, the cloth would cover up the back or else it would fall out of the cloth. It has to be.
It's much easier to attach a medallion to some kind of wrist strap if it has a hole in the middle than if it's flat and filled in, because then you need some sort of fancy holder that goes around the edge, but because it still needs to touch your skin, so you can't like have it inside a pouch or something. And so it's easier if you've got the hole and you can tie the thing on, and then it's more like a watch with two things attached to it rather than
Yeah, that makes much more sense.
I mean, I always read it that it was solid. That was just two holes on the side that you tied the cloth to, and then the whole thing like kind of sat like this does with the things on the side.
Okay,
I always read it as solid, because describing it as two rings of metal versus a ring and a disc of metal, the second one is much clunkier.
It is. To be fair, I do think it's like the watch model as like you explained, but yeah, it's like it's imprecise language. But it's one of those things where it's like additional precision in the language doesn't help because it's clunkier.
Yeah,
so it's it's two rings of metal. That's all that matters.
I am team whole.
I'm team. It's a cool thing and it does a thing.
I'm team whatever I said in that podcast.
You don't remember.
I think it's a watch. I think they're wearing watches. That's what I think they're doing.
Watches that don't tell time.
I am very excited for airships, because airships are cool.
Airships are cool.
I almost wonder if you had the technology, I think it would almost be easier to build like a Zeppelin type airship than what Brandon came up with, because it's just pretty simple design with the gas bags and things, whereas this requires so much extra. But
it's cool.
It is cool.
There's interesting implications with the difference in technology level between the North and the South. The fact that the South not only have these Allomantic, like an Allomantic step up in terms of or a magical step up in terms of the medallions, they also have flying ships, and the North has only just found cars.
Well, and that goes into Harmony's point of how he made things too easy for the North. Mm-hmm. Adversity spurs invention, and that is why they've developed all of this down south, because their lives are much, much harder, and they are always thinking of ways to try and make it easier, whereas folks in the North, they can be much lazier.
To be fair, the Southerners also had Kelsier show up and like cause chaos.
Yeah, that's true.
Kelsier causing problems. Of course.
It's how he do.
Well, thank you for watching. You can find us at 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, and support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.